Hello, my friends. Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa String Works Man Cave. You can tell it's Man Cave because it says so right there on the screen. Anyway, play along number 10. I apologize ahead of time because I didn't write down the people that gave me the 2 requests that I'm doing this evening. I'm going to do 5 songs, but 2 of them were requested this afternoon on the vlog, and one of them was Big City by Merle Haggard. It's the first time I've ever done this song, and we're going to do it first to get it out of the way. And then somebody asked for Did Anybody Take Her Picture, which is a song I wrote. And before I do that song, I'll have to tell you the story about it because that's the only way the song makes any sense. And then I've dropped in the song called The Legend of the Rebel Soldier. I think it's just a beautiful song. Politics as they are, somebody might not like it just because it's about a rebel soldier. But, it's a soldier that died in the war, and that's just the way it was. So I'm going to sing it anyway. And I think it's a great song. I think it's a beautiful song. It's not to say it's good for any political reason. It's just a good song. Then I've got a song called Rough Edges, which is going to be the first challenge song, and it's only a challenge because it's fast. It's just 1-4-5 and a 2 chord, but it's fast. And then I've got the final song, which is definitely a challenge song. It's called Seminol Wind, and it's in D minor, and it's got the most unique chord progression of the songs tonight anyway. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the Big City. Now, again, this is a Merle Haggard tune. It was requested in today's vlog. If you're the one that requested it, put your name in the comments there. I'm sorry, I forgot to write that down, who requested these 2 songs. Big City is just one of those songs that I always remember singing along with on the radio, but I never, ever, one time ever, tried to sing it by myself with an instrument in my hand. So tonight's the night for that. We're going to do this in the key of E. It's just 1-4-5, so it's E, A, and B. 1-4-5. 1, 4, and 5. Not necessarily in that order, you understand. It's just that those are the 3 chords that are in the song. 1, 4, and 5. Big City, let's see. I'm tired of this dirty old city. Entirely too much work and never enough pay. And I'm tired of these dirty old sidewalks. Think I'll walk off my steady job today. So turn me loose, set me free. Somewhere in the middle of Montana, and give me all I got coming to me, and keep your retirement and your so-called Social Security. Big City, turn me loose and let me be. Been working every day since I was 20. Haven't got a thing to show for anything I've done. There's folks who've never worked and they've got plenty. Well, I think it's time that guys like me could have some fun. So turn me loose, set me free, somewhere in the middle of Montana, and give me all I've got coming to me, and keep your retirement and your so-called Social Security. Big city, turn me loose and let me be. Hey, big city, turn me loose and set me free. Oh, I got a few little words tangled up there, but overall, that was it. For the first time you ever did it, and when the pressure's on, that's when it's hard to do. In practice, I went through it 4 or 5 times, didn't miss a word. But when you're doing it live with the pressure on, it's always a little tougher. But anyway, that's it. The beat on that's fairly quick, but you notice how the words are kind of slow and smooth, and that's just the way that Merle did it pretty much. I mean, I might have had it sped up a hair, but not very much. It was about that speed, roughly. Anyway, let's move on to the song that I wrote. It's called Did Anybody Take Her Picture? And I put this one as the second song because, really probably it should have been the first because it really is the easiest because it only has 2 chords. And it's not real fast. It's just kind of a medium speed. It's only got 2 chords, so now if you remember my Nashville number system rules, whenever somebody says this song's only got 2 chords, well, you should already know what the 2 numbers are, because it's almost always those 2 numbers. Now, it could be different, don't get me wrong. There's no black and white rule on this. This is one of those, like, 90-10 rules, that 90% of the time, if something only has 2 chords, the 2 chords are going to be a 1 and a 5. You just leave out your 4 for the most part. And that's what's happened on this song. It's just 1 and 5, so that means it's E and B, and only E and B. There's nothing else. Now, let me tell you the story quickly, and I'll try to tell it as quick as I can, because it is kind of a long story, unfortunately. We were at a bluegrass show. In fact, I was chairman of the organization at that time, and we were putting on a bluegrass show in Wentzville, Missouri, and my band was playing that evening. And we did our show, and everything went well. Well, 1 month to the day, just about exactly. I don't remember if it was exactly the day, but it was just about exactly a month later. My phone rang. I was living down here at the farm at that time, and I picked it up, and the fellow says, he asked, "Are you Jerry Rosa?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And he says, "Well, you don't know me," he says, "but we attended your show there in Wentzville. My wife and I attended your show. And I was just wondering," he just out of the blue says, "I just wondered, did anybody take any pictures of the audience that evening?" Well, I thought that was a weird question. You know what I mean? I mean, you just don't get that question very often. So I said, "Well, I don't know. I knew most everybody there. So if you tell me what you're looking for," he said, "Well, I just wanted a picture of my wife and I. We were in the crowd." And I said, "Well, about where were you sitting? And I'll ask around, and maybe somebody did take a picture, And but I was curious of why he wanted it. I said, "Well, I'm just curious. Why are you wanting to get a picture, And he says, "Well, I didn't really want to burden you with this." He says, "But he says, my wife and I really did enjoy the show that night, and that was the last thing we ever did together, because on the way home, we were struck by an oncoming car, and she was killed." And boy, I mean, that one just sent chills through me, and I was basically speechless at that point. And I told him, of course, I was very sorry to hear that, and that I would do everything I could to try to find a picture. Well, I couldn't find a picture. So I wrote this song and sent him a copy of it, I think it was, and I also invited him to our next show, and I performed it for him at the next show, and he was very touched. So it goes like this. Again, just E and B. So it's E is 1, B is 5 in this case. Did anybody take her picture? I've heard a picture's worth 1,000 words. And I'd like to have just one more conversation. So I'll have to let a picture speak for her. I didn't know it was our last night together, the last time I'd see her alive. Side by side we watched that show together. But on that lonely road that night she died. Did anybody take her picture? I've heard a picture's worth 1,000 words, and I'd like to have just one more conversation. So I'll have to let a picture speak for her. I have only my memory to serve me, and remember the good times we had. If only I'd taken her picture, I could speak to it and wouldn't feel so sad. Did anybody take her picture? I've heard a picture's worth 1,000 words, and I'd like to have just one more conversation. So I'll have to let a picture speak to her. I never thought to take her picture. In fact, it never once crossed my mind. But now that she has gone on forever, well, I think about it all of the time. Did anybody take her picture? I've heard a picture's worth 1,000 words, and I'd like to have just one more conversation. So I'll have to let a picture speak for her. Yes, I'll just have to let a picture speak for her. There you go. Yeah, that was a sad deal there. I mean, in fact, I forgot to tell you that when he called me, that, like I said, it was just about a month, almost exactly to the day that we played that show. He had just got out of the hospital that day, and that's when he called. So it was obviously very important to him, and since I couldn't get him a picture, I got him a song. So hopefully he liked that. Okay, this next song is really one of my favorite tunes to perform. I generally only perform it for kids, actually. You know, they have these things like Missouri Days and Western Days, and, you know, they study history and those kinds of things. So this is one of those things where I, try to tell a little very short story that this is tied in with the Civil War, and ask them if they know what the Civil War is and things like that. And then I just sing this song. It's called The Rebel Soldier. Now, or The Legend of the Rebel Soldier is the actual title, I believe. This song has just 1-4-5, so it's simple in that regard. It's not hard. It's a slow song. It's very easy to play, except that the way almost everybody does it is that after each verse, you modulate it. So we're going to start off in the key of G. Now, what modulation means is that you move all of your numbers up a step, a full step. So now A is going to be 1. So we start off with G being 1. So G, we got 1, 4, 5, G, C, D, just like normal. And then we move up to A, and then you got your A, D, E is 1, 4, 5. And then we move up to C, and C would be C, F, and G is 1, 4, 5. C, F, and G. Okay? So that's the trick, is it's a modulation song. Each verse you modulate. So that's why it's a little harder because of the modulation, but really it's a very simple song. Having said that, let's see if we can get through it. All right, here we go. In a dreary Yankee prison, where a rebel soldier lay, by his side there stood a preacher, ere his soul should pass away. And he faintly whispered, "Parson," as he clutched touched him by the hand. Oh, parson, tell me quickly, will my soul pass through the Southland? Now the modulation. Was for lovin' dear old Dixie in this dreary cell I lie. Was for lovin' dear old Dixie in this northern state I'll die. You know what I did? I got off on the wrong verse, and I'm really sorry. Will my soul pass through the Southland, through old Virginia grand? Will I see the hills of Georgia and the green fields of Alabama? Will I see that little church house where I pledge my heart and hand? Oh, parson, tell me quickly, will my soul pass through the Southland? Now C. I'm going to go back down here to C. Was for lovin' dear old Dixie in this dreary cell I lie. Was for lovin' dear old Dixie in this northern state I'll die. Will you see my little daughter, and can you make her understand? Oh, parson, tell me quickly, will my soul pass through the Southland? And then the rebel soldier died. Yeah, well, except for getting off on the wrong verse there. I'm sorry about that. So, again, the first verse is in G, second one's in A, and the third one's in C. And that's how I do it. You can switch that to any key that works for your voice, and that's what you should do. You should put it in, and that's true for all of these songs. You don't have to do them in the key I'm doing them in. That's why I'm giving you the numbers with it. That was just a 1-4-5 song. That's all it was. Okay, Rough Edges. I didn't practice this song, so I'll probably screw this one up big time. Now, this song is fast. It's 1-4-5 and a 2. So we're going to do it in G. So that means the 2 is your A. And where do you go after a 2 chord? You go to a 5 chord. And that's just kind of those rules. You know, not 100%, but it's about a 95%er. So anyway, here we go. This one's kind of fast. I know your friends don't approve of me, and I can understand why. I'll never fit into your way of life. I've no need for me to even try, 'cause I got rough edges all over me, and I can't change, not even for you. You can chisel and moan, but I'm brittle like coal, and my edges will never be smooth. don't regret that we fell in love. I was proud to once call you mine. But now, sweetheart, we must say goodbye, 'cause we come to the end of the line. And I got rough edges all over me, and I can't change, not even for you. You can chisel and moan, but I'm brittle like coal, and those edges will never be smooth. Those edges will never be smooth. A lot easier to do them when you got a bass and, other accompaniment. Mandolin just isn't the natural tune or the natural instrument to play as a solo act, It just isn't. But I do what I can do. Okay, that was called Rough Edges. It's a really good tune. It just has a lot of drive. It gets the crowd going. It's just a good song. Like whenever we want to, get off on the right foot, we kick it with a song like that. We kick the show with a song like that. That kind of gets the show in an upbeat mood right at the beginning. All right, so the next and the last song is called Seminole Wind, and I'll just tell you a brief story on this, and that is that back in the mid-'90s when that song came out, and I don't remember the exact year. I could look it up, I'm sure. I just don't know offhand. But it was just very short time after that. My band went in the studio, and we recorded that song bluegrass style. And then we sent it out on Prime Cuts of Bluegrass, which went all over the world at the time. Now, you got to remember, this is in the very infancy of the Internet. In fact, it really was pre-Internet. You could pretty much say that. And we got fan letters from 7 different countries, actual letters, not email. From 7 different countries about our version of that song. They just loved it, it just worked out really well, and we got a lot of airplay with it. And in fact, I did actually buy the rights to the song to put it out on the radio. So even though I did all that, YouTube's still going to hit me with a copyright on it. It's just the way it works. It's not my fault. It's in D minor. Now, okay, this one, this one's different. Let me tell you, it's different. It's 1, 3, 7, and then 4. 1, 3, 7, 4. 1, 3, 7, 4. So it's D minor, F, C, G, 1, F, C, G, 1, 3, 7, 4, 1, 3, 7, 4. It does that over and over and over and over and over and over. It never changes. That's the easy part, at least. Once you get it, you got it. So we kicked it. We didn't have a fiddle in the band, so we kicked it like this. Ever since the days of old, man has searched for wealth untold. They dig for silver and for gold and leave the empty holes. Way down south in the Everglades, where the black waters roll and the sawgrass sways, the eagles fly and the otters play in the land of the Seminole. So blow, blow, Seminole wind, blow like you're never gonna blow again. I'm calling to you like a long-lost friend, but I know who you are. And blow, blow from the Okeechobee all the way up to Micanopy, across the home of the Seminole, alligator and the gar. I'm I'm not going to try to play the whole thing. Without the band, it's tough. Progress came and took its toll, and in the name of flood control, they made their plans and they drained the land. Now the glades are going dry. Last time I walked in the swamp, I stood upon a cypress stump. I listened close and I heard the ghost of Osceola cry. So blow, blow, Seminole wind, blow like you're never gonna blow again. I'm calling to you like a long-lost friend, but I know who you are. And blow, blow from the Okeechobee all the way up to Micanopy, across the home of the Seminole, the alligator and the gar. That's about how we did it. It's pretty hard to do one by yourself without the whole band. But anyway, that is it. Anyway, so that was Big City, Did Anybody Take Her Picture, The Legend of the Rebel Soldier, Rough Edges, and Seminole Wind. Let's go through the comments and see who all's here and what they got to say. Good evening, everybody, from David Tharp. Got your instruments all tuned up to A440? It wouldn't do any good because they'd never match me. All right, after we went live, I mean, there was a few others in there at the beginning there, Ronald Todd and Martin and Joe Nigan. And after we went live, Paul Akers was the first one, then Dottie's there. And then Michael Landra says, Jerry, what makes you use double stops or notes instead of singles when you take a break? Well, I've told that story a couple hundred times, but that was what my uncle said. You know, he saw me playing when I'd only been playing a couple of weeks, less than a month. And he says, well, son, boy, for the length of time you've been playing, he says, that's about as good as I've ever heard. I never heard anybody do any better. He says, but... He says, can't hear you. You sound wimpy, and you got to learn how to play double notes. Well, I didn't know what he meant. I mean, I didn't take any lessons from anybody. There was no internet at that time. I was just on my own. So I thought, well, single notes seem hard enough. Why would you play double notes, But I thought he meant all the time, and so that's what I learned to do. And the way I learned to do it was to play it out of chord positions. So, like... As an example, let's see here. Like, I just use sled ride as an example because I'm not a very good picker and it's fairly easy to play. Started again there, but anyway, you can just see that's just double notes. I'm just using the chords, double notes out of the chords for the most part. And so, like, if somebody says, well, and the advantage of learning the way I learned, there is one advantage, and that is it doesn't matter what key they say to play it in. I do everything exactly the same. So if somebody says, well, we don't play, sled ride in G, we play it in B flat. I'd go, most time you got to relearn the song if you've learned it with the standard method, if you will, which is basically playing scales. So for me, I don't have to do that. I just move right here and just do exactly the same thing I just did. So it's exactly the same. That's why I did what I did. All I do know is at least it got some attention from Sam Bush. I've told you that story too. It was so cool because I was trying to explain all of that in front of a crowd, and it wasn't a huge crowd. It was like 30 people in this class that we were in. It was a mandolin class for the whole week. And I learned in that class that there wasn't any point in me trying to change what I was doing because everybody was so far ahead of me, and it was just I did my thing and they did their thing, and it just the way it was. And one of the things that they emphasized in that class was that guys, good mandolin players don't use their little finger to play a lot of lead. You know, I mean, maybe a note here and a note there, but they don't use their little finger. And they really stressed that. They said, you use these fingers, and all the good mandolin players that were there, you know, Butch Baldessari and Roland White, and there was a bunch of them, Sam Bush and a bunch of others. And they were all going, yep, that's right. So I'm actually starting to slide under the table because, as you just saw, I use my little finger when I'm playing lead just about as much as I use any of them, and sometimes maybe more, because I'm using that to stretch out and get those double notes, especially those double stops that are really far apart. So literally, and I'm not making this up, I'm explaining this up in front of the class, and I'm not kidding you, Sam Bush got up out of his chair while I'm playing, and he walks right up underneath my mandolin like this, and he's looking up at my strings, and he's going, I ain't never seen anybody do it like that before. And it was good. I mean, overall, it was really good. I mean, the whole experience was really good, and, you know, they learned stuff, and I learned stuff. You know what I'm saying? And Sam and I, we more or less sat together every day at lunch, and he was just a cool guy, just a great guy, just incredibly good. He way better than I would have ever dreamed. It was kind of like the Merle Haggard experience. I didn't expect Merle to be a real kind, gentle person, but he was. He was just as cool and nice and gentle and kind as he could be, and that's the way Sam was too. Can't say that about everybody that was in that class, I'll be honest with you. There was one guy, I won't name his name, but he was a scuzz bucket. I wouldn't walk across the road if you gave me free tickets. And he's a really good picker. And he's not a mandolin picker, he's a guitar picker. But I wouldn't walk literally across my driveway to see him, because he was a capital A-hole. Anyway, but everybody else in the class was super nice, just that one guy. But and then on the very last day of that class, and I promise you, I'm not making this up. This is 100% what he's thanking everybody for coming, and he's recapping what you learned this week. And remember, now you don't use those three little fingers. He said, he says you don't use that little finger. He says, except for Rosa, he can do it. The rest of you don't use that little finger. So anyway, it was pretty funny. Let's see here. Moving on down. Richard Politz says, thanks, Jerry. I heard you play Did Anybody Take Her Picture years ago at a Bluegrass Festival in Eureka. I was with our friend Larry Thomas. Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah, Larry Thomas. In fact, when I rewrote the words to Black Diamond Strings, I put Larry's name in there. You may have heard me do that. I don't know if anybody wants to hear it. I might try that one too if you want to hear it. But I rewrote the words to Black Diamond Strings, the first verse, and put my uncle in there, and I put Larry Thomas in there, because those were the people that were my big influences, in terms of playing the music and stuff and learning the music. Scott Roberts, well, you started off with my favorite Haggard song. First time watching the play along, You did okay on it, Jerry. Bluegrass style, of course. Yeah, well, I had never played it before. The very, very, very first time. So, you get better with them after you play them a time or two, especially if you have a band to back you up. It's tough to do it without a band. It really is. Or just one other instrument just to help keep time and to fill in a lot of stuff, And like playing lead, it's really hard to play lead without something there to, keep a rhythm for you while you're playing. Gino Hitch. Hi, Jerry. Really love the story and the song. Well, thank you, Gino. Dottie says, beautiful song. I think we're talking about the Did Anybody Take Her Picture there on that one, because I thought I saw those pop up while I was doing that one. Scott Roberts, I saw some sevenths in that second song. Good job, but would that constitute more than two shapes? Just wondering. I think sevenths are important, especially if you are not familiar with the song. Yeah, well, Scott, I've talked about it many, many times, and that is that sevenths, for me, are transition chords. That's what I consider a transition chord. So when you see me move that finger, I always tell all the students, and I've said it many times on here. In fact, I probably said it almost every single night, that whenever you see me move that seventh, you stay where you're at until I switch chords. But there's a switch coming when you see that seventh. It's a transition chord. Now, I have also showed everyone how to make sevenths and how to make minors, and you should do that if you can. It's like icing on a cake. It adds a little bit more to the cake, and it just makes it a little bit nicer. Let's see, moving on down. There's a lot of comments. I'm only reading the ones with question marks, guys, so if you didn't put question marks in front of it, most likely I'll be skipping it. Dottie Hillbrand says, my donation is on PayPal. Well, thank you, sweet Dottie. I appreciate that very much. Brian Biscup, good evening from Elgin, Illinois. Well, thank you. Good evening to you. Gino Hitch, the wife really likes the song. Thank you. Okay. I'm not sure which one you were talking about because it gets lost in the context at this point, but thank you. Again, I don't know who requested those two songs either, so I apologize. I should have written that down today, but I forgot to. Let's see. The Salmon one says, we have a song pretty similar called Kevin Barry by the Wolf Tones. Well done, Jerry. Brian from Ireland. Okay, well, again, that one didn't have any question marks. I just saw it in there with my name, and so I read it. But Minim Guitar says, hope you're well. Thank you. Hope you are too. Don Nice, Jerry, you are a pro. Doing something wrong still turns out great. Well, thank you. When you're on stage with the band, they don't show up nearly like they show up when you're just doing it all by yourself, and especially with a rhythm. I don't know how to explain it. The mandolin's got rhythm and all that, but it's not like a backup type instrument compared to like a guitar or a bass or that kind of thing. So it really is difficult to do a mandolin, a one-on-one with a mandolin. It's a little easier with a guitar. Not too bad with a guitar, but with a mandolin, it's tough. Scott Roberts, that's nice. Don, nice. He is that. Well, thank you, Scott. Let's see. Salmon says, wow and well done, and you can sure play your own instrument. Well, I do what I do the way I do it, and that's about all I get out of it. It's not by comparison to somebody like Sam Bush or Sierra Hall. I'm about like that much in a 5-gallon bucket. Let's see. Eddie Turner, I play my songs in the key of L. And people say it sounds like it. Yeah, I've heard that one. Yeah, we're playing this in the key of L because it sounds like L. David Sutter, oh, great playing on that one, Jerry. Well, thank you. Didn't John Anderson make Seminole Wind a hit? Yes, that is true. And we were the first ones to put it into bluegrass. I mean, at least we were the first ones to put it out on a record, if you will. David Sutter, enjoyed your playing and singing. Thank you. Michael Andrews, sorry, Jerry. I meant while you're playing a song, what makes you choose doing double, then single, going back and forth? Thanks, great playing along. Well, Michael, I don't know if I could honestly say that. To tell you, honestly, I mean, because of the way I learned to play, everything's like double stops. So, I mean, it's hard to really give you the perspective from the way that most mandolin players play. I don't have that perspective, and that's just the truth of it, because I don't know how to play like they play. They play circles around me. There's no doubt about that. I'm not even trying to justify what I do. I just do what I do, and that's all I can do. But honestly, I don't know how to answer that other than like the sevenths. When you hear those, I mean, those are double stops too. And the sevenths are, leading you to your next chord. So that's when you would throw that double stop in, is when you're being led to the next chord, I don't know if that helps at all. Sorry. Bill Rhodes, Jerry, I'm coming home. Oh, from the hospital? Well, good. I hope that's all working out for you there. Kim Williford. Yes, Ronald Todd. John Anderson did that song. I love that song too. Yeah, that's a great song. I don't hardly ever do that song anymore. I only do it for kids for the most part because, again, of the Western days, and it's the fact it's a Native American song, that kind of thing. It's about the only practice I ever get on is when we do it for the kids at school, and we only do a couple of those a year. Michael Landra says, play Black Diamond. Let me do that in honor of, and we'll do it in honor of my friend Larry Thomas. Larry was a banjo picker primarily. He could play guitar too, but he mainly was a banjo picker, and he was in my band right at the very beginning when we first started. And he also was the one that really helped me get better. I guess if I got better, it was because of Larry, because he would let me come over to his house, and it would just be him and I, and he'd show me things, kind of like I'm showing you tips and tricks. He would do that at his house. We'd do that once a week or whatever, and it was just him and I. And so Larry was really instrumental, and then he became my banjo player in my band. I mean, it was the Rosa Stringworks band, and he was the banjo player, so it worked out really well. And we became really just best friends, and played shows all over the place, just everywhere. Let's see. All right, Black Diamond Strings. I usually do it in B, but I'm going to do it in A tonight because I don't know if I can sing that high without the whole band here, Now listen, keep in mind, I changed a lot of the words in this first verse, but mostly it's the names and, and the people is really what I changed for the most part. My first guitar was a loaner, an old friend my grandpa let me keep. Back when I was a-learning how to play just like the boys in Tennessee. I would sit up late at night and pick it until my fingers turned green. And I learned how to make her talk on them black diamond strings. Here we go. My Uncle Don showed me 3 chords, and Larry Thomas taught me how to play. And he showed me the G-run that I'm still using today. I thought it surely must be magic, the way he made it ring. But he said there ain't no secret, son, it's just them black diamond strings. Now I don't know if they still make 'em. Back then they were the best. And a good time didn't cost too much then, $2.95 a set. Back before I left Fay Ellen to chase my hillbilly dreams. All it took to make me happy was an old guitar and black diamond string. Now I've been to the mountaintop, I had my share of troubles too. If I could do it all again, Lord, well, I know just what that I would do. If I could have just one wish, I'd go back in a time machine to the day I learned to pick the wildwood flower on them black diamond strings. Now I don't know if they still make them, but back then they were the best. And a good time didn't cost too much then, $2.95 a set. Back before I left Fay Ellen to chase my make it big dreams. All it took to make me happy was an old guitar and black diamond string. Back before I left Fay Ellen to chase my hillbilly dreams. All it took to make me happy was an old guitar and black diamond string. That's a great song written by, I had his name in there, Larry Cordell and Lonesome Standard Time. Larry Cordell wrote that song. And I know I've told this many times, but lots of people don't hear everything, not on every video, that whole thing, plus there's new people. And that is that I was a radio DJ for quite a few years on 2 different radio stations. And the truth is, and I'm not making this up, I never heard that song, and it was number 1. It hit number 1, I think, in bluegrass and country about the same time. And I had never heard it. And it just seems so stupid to me that I was a DJ and never heard the song. But I was at Jeff City at a bluegrass festival, at an indoor bluegrass festival. It was during the winter, and it was at a hotel. And this long, tall gal, she wasn't playing anything, but one of the musicians recognized her and said, "Come up here and sing that song that you do." And she started singing it, and I didn't know what song it was. But as soon as she started singing it, I went, whoa, that's my song, Black Diamond Strings, because I had just this burned-in image in my brain from when I was just a kid. I would sneak into my grandpa's bedroom and pull out his instruments out from under the bed, and they're just covered in dust bunnies because he didn't play anymore. And I'd look at his instruments. I didn't play them or nothing. I just opened the cases and look at them. They just fascinated me. And the thing I remember the most, the thing that burns in my brain the most, was this black, I want to say velveteen box, for sure a black box. I don't remember exactly what the covering was, but it seemed like it was like a velveteen covering, or maybe it was a alligator skin covering. I just don't remember. But it was a weird black box, and in gold letters it said Black Diamond Strings. So that's why I do that song. All right, let me see if I can get through the rest of these questions. All right, so we got, Yolanda's music's back in here. Well, Yolanda, I hope you're doing well. Hope, now I can't think of his name. You know me and names. Sorry, Yolanda. I hope he's doing well, too. I know he had a whole bunch of issues, health issues. Gosh, I know it. I just can't think of it. Good afternoon. Hope all is well in the super cold weather. Loved hearing everything, Jerry. Well, thank you, Yolanda, and we'll have to get you back in here one of these days. Kim Williford. Good evening, Jerry. I hope it won't be too cold at your house. Hope you have enough firewood in the furnace. Well, right at the moment, we're doing okay. It doesn't last long, though. Let's see here. Neil Benden, he doesn't have any question marks there, but I'll read it. I think he's addressing it to me. It says, "Sir, I'm a songwriter who can't write music. I've got the tunes in my head. I'm 75 years old. Also, I have only the use of my left hand thanks to the smallpox vaccine." Wow, terrible. Well, yeah, I don't... I can't write music either. I know nothing about formal music. I mean, I've heard the word like treble clef and, eighth note and whole notes and stuff. I've heard those terms, but that's all. I've heard them. That's it. They don't mean anything to me. Let's see. Moving on down. Ronald Todd's got some question marks. Hi, Yolanda. Yep. Good night. Okay, let's see. Moving on down, looking for question marks in case anybody else has anything else. Ronald Todd says, "I remember when I was a young teenager, I learned to play guitar on a family friend's old D28, and it had black diamond strings in the guitar case." Yeah, that was about all you could get back in the early 60s, roughly. I mean, seriously, that was about all you could get. And those, most people got them at the drugstore, believe it or not. That's where you got your guitar strings back then. Okay, I think that's it, guys. Mark, yeah, that was his name. I'm sorry. I just, you know me, I can't remember names. It's just the way it is. It'll always be that way. It's always been that way, and I don't see it changing. Like I told everybody, and I'm not making this up when I say this. I mean this 100%. The hardest thing I do on stage is to introduce my band. And I can look right at them, and their name just goes blink. It's just gone. I can't say their dang name. And I know it. I mean, obviously I know it. It's just terrible. It's just been that way my whole life. And it's not an old age thing. It's something to do with my genetic defects that I've got. I mean, I've got a bunch of them, and that's one of them. I can't remember song titles for the most part either. I can remember the words to hundreds of songs. I can't remember the titles to the darn songs. It's just weird. I'm just a messed up thing. David Thur says he got his at Sears Roebuck. David Sutter says, "I actually remember using black diamond strings on my Stratocaster back in the early 60s. I don't doubt it, because that was about all you could get." Some of the old-timers, I do remember a few of the old-timer stories where, money was different back then. Even though you were only paying a few bucks for those strings, that was expensive. That was an expense, and one you tried to make it last as long as you could. And I remember the old timers telling me, and I'm not making this up, they said black and white, they would take their strings off their guitar, put them in a pot of boiling water and let them boil, and then take them out, dry them off and everything, and put them back on their instrument, and they would sound like new again. Can you imagine? But anyway, that's what people had to do back in the day, Guys, thanks for being here. We will see you tomorrow at about 1 o'clock on the vlog. If you can be there, we would love to have you. And if you don't mind hitting a thumbs up tonight, I sure would appreciate that. Thank you.